Hello, and welcome to Evolving on Purpose, a show I have created in hopes that I can inspire you to take the deep dive into discovering who you are and what you came here to do. Each week, I will have on individuals to share their unique journey to self-discovery and where their purpose is taking them. I will also do solo episodes to share what I am currently learning, practicing, or even just contemplating. So come on, what are you waiting for? Join me in Evolving on Purpose. Hello and welcome. I am so excited about this week's episode. I have Maggie Pierce on the show. Maggie was introduced to me by my best friend, Rebecca, who I was in the Navy with, and we're still very, very close. She's always finding the best healers. Anytime I come to visit, she's setting me up with maybe a reflexology where the woman can tap into my angels or my guides, or a massage that breaks free something within me. And the newest person she's brought into my life is Maggie. Maggie has worked on many people in kind of that circle in Ohio that I am close to, and everybody raved. So I, of course, had to have a session with Maggie. My mom's had a session. Lots and lots of clients of mine are now having sessions with Maggie. So I think that you will understand after listening to her why I so highly recommend her and all of the wonderful things she's bringing. So welcome, Maggie.
Thank you. It's great being here.
Yes. I'm just really excited to share more, because I tell people what you do, and then they kind of are like, is it now I get to just refer them to this podcast? So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. There is a certain level of this that feels very different. It's a paradigm shift, I think, for myself and a lot of people, but it's an exciting paradigm shift, because I think it's this energy. We're really leaning into how energy is real and not really making it sound like it's strange or it's selective for certain people. So It's really cool to see this all coming together. Yeah.
Yes. I just kind of want to give everybody a little bit of an overview on your design, just so as we speak, they can kind of maybe understand you a little bit better. In human design, you're the profile 6'2". So the profile is just kind of the costume. And really, if you're a 6'2", you really resonate with other 6'2s. We have some 4'6s in our group that we all kind of resonate really well with, because the 2 and the 4 resonate, and the 6 resonates with each other. And so knowing your profile is kind of an interesting way of understanding why you really resonate with some people and why you don't. So you're the 6'2", which is that kind of role model, and then this naturally gifted human that just takes on these things that they've kind of brought with them, and they're remembering and all these skills and different things. And then the role model is like, I'm going to kind of work with these skills over and over and then show you how to work with them. So you're that 6'2". And then you're a generator. So you do have that sacral, the sacral chakra, I guess, really defined in your chart. You create this energy that we can feel, right? Like, and you've got a really strong sacral, which we're going to talk about later. And in astrology, you're a Sagittarius. So you bring all this beautiful, like, excitement and fire, and you can share the things that you're learning in this way that really gets other people excited about it. That's what I love about a Sagittarius. And then you're the Scorpio rising. So you take it deeper, right? You're able to connect with people on a really deep level. And then your Virgo moon is like really good at the details, right? It's like so good at connecting the dots and making the list and making sure that things are happening. So you're using all of this and with that purpose in GeneKeys or human design, which is that cross of identification, which is all logic circuitry, right? And that's what I love about you, is you're so logical. It's like, I am going to tune you with these tuning forks, but I know, I know all the logistics of why it works and how it works, and I can help you understand it, right? It doesn't feel like, imagination as much. It feels very logical when you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that's a wonderful overview of all kinds of things. And I love the little details and the nuances that you speak of about because all these things kind of get tucked away in personalities or in your day to day, and we don't really think about those nuances having such a gift as they come out. And so, interesting as we might get into this, but for biofield tuning, for me, I've gone through lots of different things and many years of different trainings and different ways of helping and assisting clients, people, family, things of that sort. But for me, at least at this point, biofield tuning feels like it's the umbrella that gets to encompass so many different avenues, so many different aspects of what I have come to enjoy about what I'm able to bring to people, and also to enjoy what it offers to my life too. So it's really it's a great culmination of many things. So that's great.
Yeah. And I just would love to, if you can kind of bring us on the arc, because I mean, you didn't start out thinking you were going to be a coach or a biofield tuner or any of this. You've had a lot of life experience that has led you here. So can you just talk about kind of what it was like growing up and how you got to kind of this discovery, this beautiful, how you kind of come into who you are now?
Yeah, it's fun to look back now. Boy, when so I grew up in a very small town in Ohio, and that small town was just didn't quite fit. But at that age, or very small ages, we just don't realize what that means. But as I grew into more things within my family, I have two older brothers. They were 9 and 11 years older than me, so there's a big span of age. So I felt like an only child. And also being a girl, I don't think my mom was really ready to have a girl to raise. And plus being Sagittarius, I think there was a huge conflict in what I brought forward in that sacral area, so pronounced too. So anyways, my mom had an aunt who lived in New York City that would come and visit us every once in a while. And she would come to this small town, which had never seen a taxi before. She would come in a taxi. She would come with leopard skin coat, high heels. And it was just like, oh my God, this person is who I think I'm supposed to be. I don't know. Here I am in the small town, but it just didn't quite match. But I could just get a glimpse of her at that time. And it just inspired me. She brought, cosmetic samples. And then all of a sudden I'm playing with all these different makeup things. And it opened and sparked me to realizing that there's something that's stirring, and that stirring just started at that young age, and I just didn't know particularly where it would go. But the thing I've loved as I look back on my life so far has been that I will move in certain directions because of those stirrings. And it wasn't so much that they laid out a map for me, to know where I was going, but I was stirred enough. And I guess that maybe Sagittarius fire or that passion would direct me somewhere. And it wasn't logical, really, for the most part. It was just something that I needed to start experiencing. So, small town, going through very early situations of a teenage pregnancy, situations of divorce, situations of raising a family in a small town, trying to keep a marriage together that never quite was able to fit and get itself in a space, although everybody did the very best we all could. But I think there's plenty of your viewers, because I know there's plenty of people I run into, that those slight misfits just don't quite settle. And we really give them a lot of time and a lot of space and a lot of energy. And I'm not sure that that's wrong or right, and I'm not saying that, but it just occupies a lot of time and a lot of things so that we can look back on it and say, wow, that's been going on for a while. It just doesn't feel quite settled for a long time. So anyways, I had, my husband was a dentist, and we had a consultant that came into the office to do some consulting lots of years ago. I'll just put it that way. And she was talking about coaching and that she was going into coaches training. She was from California, and she just sparked my interest so much that I went home that night and signed up for the coaching, or for a flight to go to this coaching thing, Came back the next morning, told her I was on the flight, I was going to be there at this certain time, and she went, "Sweetie, that coaching is already sold out. You can't get in." I went, "Oh, okay." And she says, "But let's see what we can do to make it happen." And we made it happen. So, very long story short on that one, I got into the field of coaching out in California many years ago when it was very unknown what coaching was, and still can be. I'm not a softball coach. I'm not a soccer coach. I'm not an athletic coach. I'm a coach for mostly women, but I'm a coach for people's potential. And so that opened up a brand new set of eyes for me, for a person who was in a small town, to go to California to be trained. I went into the leadership program for CTI, became certified. It was a long process over several years, but it definitely transformed my life to look at things very differently and to realize that we have one life to live and we have got to make the best of every moment. And that was a paradigm shift for me, who was just kind of floating through life. So, all those different things. I moved, my husband and I divorced. I moved to Maine because it felt like I needed to heal, and Maine felt like the right place for me. So I was there. During the time I was there, I embraced becoming a spa owner. And so the beauty of the makeup from my aunt many years ago all of a sudden became a profession. And I realized how good I was at it, that I just naturally knew skin and the health of women. And all of a sudden, a woman that's on my table for a facial is now pouring out her life to me and feeling. And so we had this different connection. So I took it deeper than just that skin deep part. So that became a journey. And in that process, I did my own healing in Maine, which Maine is an incredible place to do really deep healing by the water. And as it would all happen, I felt compelled that I thought I needed to come back to be in Ohio with my family. I had 2 sons who were still in the area. So I came back to Ohio and created a whole different way of living on my own, to incorporate my own techniques and talents, I guess, coaching. And so in the process, I just keep picking up another certification, and it all comes into tucking it into my belt to be able to have different ways and I won't say expertise because I don't even want to claim that that's what it is, but I have certain frames of reference, I would put it, for anybody who walks into, whether it's for biofield tuning or whether it's for coaching. There's a lot of different avenues now I can help direct someone so that we can explore some different ways of approaching their life and enhancing their life. But the thing I'm just captured by the biofield tuning right now has been that I feel a calling right now for many of us, who I call us in a way light workers, to bring light, the brightest of light, into us. We can't light the way. We can't be map makers for others if our light is dimmed. And we are so dimmed by diet, emotions, ancestral baggage, so many different things. And so what I feel I'm doing is using tuning forks, which is what I use to work with the body. They work together. And I basically just help that person to light up their electrical system, to give themselves the light that they were born with. We call it factory settings. We come in with those factory settings, but we get dimmed down along the way. So it gives the body electricity. It gives it recharging of the voltage. It brings back health that the body has been out of tune with. So there's a lot of different, ways of looking at it, but I look at it mostly to bring light back into the body and attune it back to where it needs to be in order to just move through life like it should be.
Yeah. And I love the correlation of, I can't remember who I heard talk about it, was like an instrument, right? You maybe make, your body can make this beautiful instrumental sound when it's all coherent, but you know what an instrument sounds like when it's out of tune, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so it just kind of feels like you're almost tuning that instrument back to, like you said, the factory settings of, because we all come in here perfect, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I see in the birth chart too. It's like even these things that at first I was like, man, that's kind of hard. And I used to even look at people's charts and be like, man, you kind of came with a hard mission. And then I started realizing, no, it's perfect. You came here with all the tools, all the timing, all the everything to get where you're trying to go, what you really wanted to experience. And now we have wonderful people like you that can really help us, because when you get really kind of off your path, it's like you've been so uncomfortable in your body for so long because it's been screaming at you saying, this is not right, this isn't the right way, and you're like, no, we can't do that.
Right. Yeah, we comply to a lot of different people's songs, or if you're putting it in that reflection, we try to tune into somebody else's song or tune, and it's just not going to happen. It's going to feel off all the time. And it's interesting when I listen to the forks, or I feel the vibration of them as I'm doing a session or any of that, you can really hear it. It will screech, it will go dim to the point where I can really try to make that fork do something, and it will not do it because it's reading the energy of the body, and that body has nothing to give right at that point in time. So yeah, it's fascinating.
It is. I want to go over a little bit about, okay, so somebody's tuning in, they've never heard of biofield tuning, which I'll put your website in there and you've got, a good description of it, but let's just talk about what is biofield tuning? What do you use as a practitioner? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. So, one of the things I find is that there's many people who don't, because they don't have an understanding, they've never heard of it, and it's very new to them. I find I use my communication skills as much as possible, and the connection that I'm able to set up a rapport so that they can feel comfortable with what's going on. Because really all that person is doing when I work remotely or I work in person, but I just want them to understand that all they're going to be doing is just lying on a bed and relaxing, breathing, being curious about maybe what might show up, whether they're feeling a sensation or something of that sort. But the biggest thing I'm asking of them or suggesting that they do is to start learning how to receive. And that becomes almost like they're not really even sure how to do that. So first and foremost, that's what a person is doing. And I explain it sometimes to them, and this is definitely not a specific logical professional way to do this. I feel like people bring their pail of garbage into a session, and what we're doing is we don't have to pick through the garbage and smell it and really go into the detail of it. We're just going to wash it with light, and washing it with light and fusing it with light then just allows for whatever garbage needs to float to the surface and float out and be let go of, is able to do that because there isn't any room for it anymore. The garbage just doesn't have the room because the light has taken it on and taken more and more. And I feel like that builds up the more sessions a person gets used to and receives that. So that's not really a technical way of what's going on, but what is more in the absolute of what I'm doing is that I am considered a practitioner, but what I am doing is I'm walking forks is what I'm doing. I'm walking forks to get the forks, and we can go specifically as to what that looks like, but I'm having the forks do their tuning with the body. So the body and the forks are the ones who are doing all the work, so to speak. It's between the two of them. It's a communication process, just like what you spoke about as far as the instrument. You hear that tune, you hear that tone, and what, say, a violinist will do is they have to mechanically adjust their instrument to move it to the tune or to the tone that is the forks are offering. And in a way, the body then does that naturally. When it hears the tone of the forks, or the forks hear the tone of the body, they're reading each other. And so if it's that low tone, that dull tone, that dimmer tone, then I just continue to strike that fork to keep the resonance moving so that the body starts to be remembering the high frequency, the tone that it's really supposed to be, or it's really made to be, and it's forgot. And so that forgetting is a process sometimes. And sometimes we have to move some energy. There's some emotions that are there. There's an incident that happened possibly in that time that that person has got, I will call it resistance. And so it needs to be neutralized so that the light can be brought in to the body much more easily. So I'll just, is it okay if I just go through and give a little bit specific of what a session might look like or what it looks like?
Yeah.
Okay, so whether it's somebody on my bed, I have a massage table, or whether somebody is doing it remotely, I'm still visualizing, whether it's holographically or in person, that person's body is on the bed. And to start with, I just help them to see that their body is like a battery. So their body represents and is like an electrical charge of a battery. And the most times we are plugged up at both ends, from our head and our feet. And so because of that plugging up, we don't get the infusion. We can't get the infusion from the earth and from above our head, from this beautiful divine wisdom that is way up above our head from this astral plane. We can't get that information, that light, because we're plugged up for various different reasons. For feet, it's because we're wearing rubber-soled shoes. It's because we're walking inside and not really on the earth anymore, barefoot. We forgot how to actually connect many times to the actual earth. So when I start off, I'm really starting by opening their Earth star, which is at their feet. And it should, both the Earth star and the Sun star should be maybe 8 to 12 inches above those areas, those physical areas of the body. So on the Earth star, usually it's so tucked in because we're so afraid to be on this earth, or there can be all kinds of different interpretations, but we're not grounded. And so that Earth star usually is tucked very closely and tightly into right around the ankles. And it takes a while. So I'm striking a weighted fork, which has a tone to it, and I'm listening for the frequency to hear what's going on. And a lot of times it'll have this beautiful tone to begin with. And as I move it into that area, it just kind of, it feels like I've just stuck it into a bunch of mud, so to speak. And that Earth star is an energy frequency. It is an energy that is of a real value. And so I'm just staying with it to move that Earth star, to unplug it. Then I do the same thing with the Sun star. Once that's open, then I'm working to open that central channel and start infusing light with the ends of the fork to give the whole body, the physical body in and of itself, that central channel, more of an exposure to light. Once it's unplugged, it can open up and have that. A lot of people will feel sensations, kind of like, they might feel certain areas as the central channel opens up, maybe in the solar plexus or whatever. People tend to, I hear sometimes that it feels like when your foot's fallen asleep, and it feels like that tingling when it comes back. So that might be a sensation that kind of is in passing, or they might notice something in their shoulder. I'm asking them if they feel like they want to share any of those sensations, that's fine. And then once they have been unplugged, then I work with a pendulum over the energy centers to find out where their body is asking for attention today. There's a certain way the body is saying and telling me, or telling anyone who's practicing on that person, that I need some attention here. And so that's where I start working then. So should I keep going?
No, I think that's perfect in my experience. I love that I have had the pleasure of being in person with you and over the phone. So I can compare, and I don't think that either was better, right? Like they were both perfect. I started with over the phone, and I wasn't sure, actually. I had looked it up when I heard about you, and I was like, man, I can't get to Ohio anytime soon, but I want a session. I looked it up and I saw that you could do remote for different people. And I just thought, I don't know that that'll work, right? Like the same way. And I don't want to do that. And then when Rebecca said that you mentioned that you did remote and you felt like you connected very well through remote sessions, I decided to try it. And even before you struck the tuning fork, just when you said, I'm placing my hands on your ankles, I could feel it, right? Like I could feel it because you kind of set up this whole, like you said, you put me holographically on your table, and I'm laying in my bed, but I'm imagining myself there with you. You're placing me there with you. We're both intending for our energies to meet, and they do, right? Like, how do I pick up my cell phone and call somebody on the other side of the world?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how energy works, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that instantaneous. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about, because I've coached my coaching for years, and the training that I received so many years ago was over the phone. So I'm very used to working remotely, not seeing that physical person. As a matter of fact, some of my clients I've never met, but I feel like I'm able to read enough of the energy and read between the lines of what's said and what's not said. So I think that that's also maybe enhanced some of that for me. And you're absolutely right. Energy is real when we set the intention, and I do the best I can to really help communicate that to someone so that they can feel in the frame of mind and reference as me, so that it works, so that we can both be contributing to that. But it's just, it still boggles the mind every time a session is over and I hear from somebody. It's still like, wow, that's wonderful. That's so incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
different changes.
And when we first started, so I've done a lot of work on myself. I mean,
Yeah.
my entire life has been self-development, right? That's who I am.
Yay.
So I've done a lot of work, and, I had this time, which, now I can look back astrologically and see it was for me, right? Maybe I was a little off path, and so it felt really intense. But panic attacks, couldn't leave my house, just crippling anxiety. My thyroid was up or down, so it was anxiety or depression, couldn't get out of bed, or, couldn't sleep. It was all over the place. And I worked through it with the use of, maybe tapping, meditation, Epsom salt baths all the time.
Yeah.
And then reading Radical Acceptance. I always talk about Tara Brach, Radical Acceptance. That book really helped me to get in my mind and say, whatever is happening is okay. And when I got to that point, I've never had another panic attack, right? Because I didn't keep saying, this can't happen. This can't happen. Oh no, I'm going down this path and I'm going to be, and instead I'm just like, ooh, I'm anxious and it's okay. Right. But when you were working the forks, I still had a lot of anxiety in the body that I didn't even notice in the mind, right? Because I was so good at meditating and maybe tapping or doing some qigong or something to quiet my mind. So I didn't go into anxiety, but it was still in my body. When you hit those forks, I could hear them going, just screeching. And it was very uncomfortable while I was laying there, but it didn't last very long, right? Like the uncomfortability. But it was like I could feel it and it was releasing. And I just think that's why I'm so passionate about getting this information out about biofield tuning, because I was doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was still in my body. And after our first session, I'll say it was probably the first time I had felt grounded. Maybe when I was a kid, I'd feel grounded, but I don't know. I feel like I came in kind of a stressful situation. And so in being very, very leaky with my energy a little bit, I think I took that on at a very young age.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we come in vulnerable. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And we don't have any filters really for that. So what you bring up is really, I mean, we look at it as it's something wrong with us or something like that, but it's really, truly just giving us a message. The emotions of our bodies are stored in, and that's why this is called biofield, so that it's, as I mentioned, I'm opening up the physical body in a way as far as this battery to begin with. And then once that's open, then I go out, I move out away from the body, like 6 feet out on whatever side that I'm working on of the body. And that's the field. And so that's where I'm really doing a lot of the combing. And what you were speaking about is your physical body may have come into some acceptance and some repair and restoration around the anxiety it was able physically to hold. But what we ran into as we're combing through the field, as I'm using the forks and moving through the field, coming closer and coming into your body, we were picking up those places where it was still stored. And it was still from a long time ago, could have been ancestral. It's amazing how much cellular memory is of ancestral wounds that our parents couldn't feel, or grandparents, or things of that sort. And it's now, in a way, into that garbage pail, to speak. And that's why, sometimes people will say even, I don't know where this comes from. I don't know why I'm so whatever. I don't know, this makes no sense to me. And when you start looking, going into the field and feeling into it and listening to the forks, you hear it's from way back when. It's been there for a while. And the forks, then we just find the time and we stay with that tone until it gets to where it has that tuned up tone to it and feels that easy vibration, that harmonic vibration, and that light, so we can bring it back into the body so it can have that repair and raise that vibration again.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Do you feel like you need to understand, or you do have an understanding of why we carry this ancestral in our field, and does everybody have it in their field? And is it our ancestors trying to come through us to clear things? Is it just, I would love to just hear your take on it. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
Well, I think, if you look back, we tend to think of, and you bring up something that's great, is that, you're so into self-awareness and self-care and things of that sort. And we're a generation, last couple generations, that really can embrace that. Prior to that, that was not the case. If you had emotional, and these are emotions, these are emotions that are stuck, it could be incidents for sure, but it's the emotional resonance that I'm feeling into, and that the forks I feel that's what we're picking up on. And so that those emotions weren't allowed to be even thought about, thinking of anybody maybe in World War II, or even for that matter, more recently, say a Vietnam War, you come back from that with PTSD and you're just supposed to just step into life. And that's not the situation. That trauma, those emotions are still there. And we just have tried to think that we could brush it under the rug. And so what I feel is that people tend to be able to feel more now and be able to heal it because they're aware of it and have allowed themselves the space. And we have maybe the luxury of more of that space at times. But before, it had a stigma. You weren't supposed to have any emotional problems. I can remember a family member of mine that had some emotional problems when she was going through maybe some marital things, and maybe it was menopause and things like that. So, I mean, it could have been a combination. I was small at the time, I don't recall. But there were several different things, and she was having a really big time. And they did shock therapy. They put her in a hospital and took her away from the family and things like that. And that was fairly standard. You didn't have therapists, you didn't have coaches, you didn't have all these different ways to heal and even be with and recognize emotions. And so that's part of what I feel is also coming up now as this paradigm shift really becomes, and we become into the Aquarian age, is we get to actually recognize we have emotions. We have a wide range of emotions. And we as humans get to accept and know that each one of those emotions matter. They're not good, bad, right, wrong, better than, or any of that. We are an emotional creature that we have that for our guidance system. So, I think all of that's coming up, and being able to be shown with this type of a session to really recognize it. And I love the other part that's interesting, that in Biofield, in the field, once I find the edge of that person, I just hang there for a while to kind of check in, see if there are any ancestors or ancestral influence. And a lot of times it feels like I'm feeling those ancestors show up. And whether they are or not, I could never prove that, but sometimes I get pictures and I can even relate that. And sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's beyond our knowing, but you can get a sense that there is something about they're ready to heal too. And so the permission is that this person now, this time, this space is allowing that freedom of recovery for them too.
Well, it's
And
kind
then
of
the other part, go ahead, please.
Oh, it's just kind of interesting to think about why do we even come to Earth? And it is to kind of experience this body and these emotions. And so if you've passed over and you were never able to clear it, to be able to come through somebody to help clear that. That's an interesting thought too. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like it's almost like, and I've done several different things. Emotion code does the very same thing, and you can get in touch with those ancestors, and it feels like they just kind of back up. I mean, they're there like a whole bunch. It feels like the room gets very crowded with that type of energy that just us, it's like, oh, thank God. Thank God we get some relief from this and we get some light, because this has just been a heavy burden. And I think that sometimes, we now on this earth maybe are feeling more of that heaviness of that, because it's not been able to be released and lightened up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then so you always talk about the masculine and the feminine and the right and left side. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the body has a representation usually of the masculine and feminine, depending on which side, the pendulum or what I'm working with. And Eileen McCusick, who is really the creator of Biofield Tuning and has written several books about this, and that's whose course I've gone through for the practitioner that I am. She's done a mapping so that she's been at this for many years, and when she's using the fork and she's combing through at certain areas of the body, it feels like there's certain emotions or situations or possibly like a traumatizing sensation that might be related to these different energy chakras. And depending on which side you're working on, can relate then to maybe the relationship with your father, if it's on the right side, or the relationship to the masculine. And as I'm combing through this, there might be some things that I bring up that then I can offer some assistance for someone as they're thinking about this. Did this ever, did you have an easy relationship with your father? Was this a good relationship? And sometimes the forks will give me information, but I also open it up if the client feels that they want to speak to it. It's not that they have to. It's not about bringing up anything that they ever have to, but sometimes when we're stuck and so as I'm combing the field and I come to certain times, the biofield actually can be marked like the rings of a tree, that you can find certain times. And when I'm coming into a certain resistance, I can say something about, it feels like I'm right here at like age 4 to 6, somewhere in this area. I'm meeting up to some type of resistance. I'm on the side of the masculine, or your father could have some kind of influence there. Does anything come to mind at that time? And I give them full, ability to, if they want to share, that's fine, because as a coach and as a professional, I know that what is in that room and in that session stays only in that session. So they don't have to relive it, but sometimes it helps their process and to break the energy if they speak about it a bit, because then it kind of connects some of the dots. Doesn't have to happen, because the forks in the body, again, are doing, I feel, the harmonizing. But sometimes that will happen. And so it just brings up maybe that relationship that they had with their father, or maybe the relationship they're still showing that's of a very masculine tendency, busyness, overworking, overdriving, things of that sort really is a very masculine type of energy. And that shows up on the right hip for many people. A lot of people have right hip replacements. not coincidentally, because there's so much in that frame of reference that they think that they have to do that and keep doing, overworking. Whereas on the left side, more the feminine side, if it were the hip, say for instance, it's about really wanting to meet other people's needs. Always that feminine that's always taking care of everybody else. And so that left hip can sometimes be the place where that energy kind of gets stuck around in that area. So it's got its own traits, I guess, its own influences. And so using that masculine and feminine helps to identify, it doesn't always have to be about father or anything of that sort, but there's a certain way that the masculine has a structure to it, obviously. And so that masculine structure can be showing up on the right side, whereas the left side can be more about not feeling like you can make any thoughts or make decisions on your own. You're feeling very, maybe stuck. So there's a little bit of an influence on both sides that way.
And I love that you give that little bit of information for me while I'm in it. I usually, once in a while, maybe a storyline or something will come up, but most of the time I just feel maybe some discomfort in certain areas of my body. And I just focus on breathing into it while you kind of talk about maybe where it could be and keep hitting the forks. And I love that because I've thought about maybe certifying an EFT. I did a lot of tapping, which is just tapping various points in the body to while saying something to release. And I never really enjoyed the script, right? I did enjoy tapping the points, right? So I would tap the points and I'd breathe, and it would help calm me down if I was overly anxious. But the script never really connected with me. And we kind of talked about why you kind of like the Biofield versus, doing some EFT tapping because of this. Was it because of the script that you thought that the script can be hard to kind of put it into words even?
For sure. I think what words have a hard time even coming and connecting with energy. That's why I think with you, and I do with a lot of people, but I think maybe what gave you a little bit more freedom was I threw out several different words or several different ways. So I do that on purpose to see what might land for you, because we're all having our own perception of things, and certain phrases or words and things like that will be of benefit and others won't be. So I do that for that reason. And I think for when we spoke about for EFT and the script, in a way like this, is that if somebody told you that this is what it was, that becomes, I don't agree with that type of philosophy. It's that you're feeling into it. It's your experience, and your emotions and the energy of who you are needs to relate to what that process is. So that script might have been really good for some person or a group of people or things like that. But that's where I think it can fall short, possibly, that you feel like you want your own script. You need your own words, or you need to have an identifier with your own type of a word vocabulary to it.
Yeah. And even if you were working with somebody, sometimes it's hard to even come up with, right? Sometimes I'm just like, I know I have a pain in my gut and I don't know why, right? Like, I don't know what's triggering this. And that today, even I had like a lot of sacral energy come up, which I knew we were going to talk about the sacral, and I was reading about some sacral stuff, but I had a lot of sacral, and I couldn't even always put it into words, but I could just feel that it's there. Right. Yeah. And so, So
the sacral has really been dampened down a lot. The women, the feminine, we have had years and centuries and generations of numbing down and not being able to really tap into the true pleasure and light of what the sacral actually represents, and how a feminine can actually be able to express that. So there's a lot of work, and it feels like that's part of what I really want to go and be assisting for women to, is to connect back out of the trauma, the years of trauma, whether it's our own trauma that happened in our lives. There's a lot of sexual abuse, those types, the actual present day, but there's years and generations of that we're still working through. And like you said, we can maybe logically have some of the, connecting some dots. Maybe our bodies can feel like they've done some recovery, but there's a lot in the field. I mean, there's a lot there. Yeah.
Yeah, can we talk? I really wanted to talk about the sacral a little bit because I know that you found, and Eileen Makuzik has found, and actually almost every single person that I've talked to in the Biofield Tuning has talked about the sacral, especially for women. But first, can we talk about what it even is? Because I may have listeners that don't even know what a sacral is. They don't know what a chakra is. They don't know.
Sure.
So yeah, would you be able to talk about when we speak about the sacral? And I mean, it doesn't have to be a PhD in chakras, but
yeah, when I feel into the body, or when I'm doing the biofield tuning, I'm moving, I'm allowing that, like at the very beginning, that central channel to open. And so when I'm at the feet and I've unplugged the earth star and I'm moving, it feels like the light and the electricity and the voltage going up through the body. It's, starts at the very base of the spine, which is the root chakra. And that's like chakra or energy system or energy point, whatever, however you want to do it. There's a lot of them, and these are only the main ones. There's many different ones, even ones at the knees and things like that aren't particularly discussed. But the root chakra really has to do with protection, security, and really feeling like you're at home and can feel safe in that home, whether it's your body, your physical space, or things of that sort. The next chakra, the energy system, is considered or called the sacral. And that's, to me, when I see that, it feels like when I'm moving through the body, I see that pelvic bone. I see the sway of the hips. I see that sacral area of the body that holds the bowl of creation and power. And it can be, money, sex, and power is kind of in that area. And so that holds a lot of energy just by the culture of who we are. And how do we relate to all of that? Do we? Most of us don't even have a consciousness of how we relate and how our own belief system is in any of these different areas. And then, so there's a lot of trauma that can be stored in that, because a lot of women both have hip problems. We sit a lot. So we don't move our hips. We don't dance the way we used to. We don't have that pelvic bowl really stimulated as much as we maybe used to. So it stores because of the fact that it's not been moving very much. So that movement stays, or that whatever energy stays stuck. And then the next area that feels like it's got a lot of stuck energy, I'll say it that way, I guess, is the solar plexus, which is in the midsection of the body, at our abdomen. My acupuncturist even talks about as the girdle, that we have got a girdle around that area. And you see many of us that have, when we're putting on weight, we put extra weight on in that midsection, whether it's the beer belly or things of that sort. That's usually stored trauma, stored emotions that we're just not willing or haven't been able to have the availability to let go of and to work through and to actually face. And so it's the self part of us, the self-respect, the self-dignity, the self-love, the self-care, anything that's got to do with the self, that's in that section there. So those, the sacral and the solar plexus, for me, hold a lot of those stored emotions. It's not that there aren't all over the place, but for sure I run into, it seems like, a lot right now. And in that solar plexus is where shame and guilt stays. And so for me, guilt is something that I feel is an interesting emotion that many people don't feel they have a right to feel. To me, guilt is about anger you feel you don't have a right to express. And so you build it up, and then you make other people feel guilty. And a lot of times with emotions, because we don't know what to do with them, and because we don't really face them or work with them in a healthy way, they come out what we call sideways. So we're pushing it on other people and making them feel guilty, or, doing situations where we have to feel guilty. So we don't really deal with it and allow it to move through. And that's part of what the forks can do, is to help those neutralize so that they don't have to be something that's so stuck in us. But for me, shame is the toughest one, because it is not an emotion, and it's something that someone else gave to you. So if there's one thing out of this podcast I hope some people will really resonate with, is that they are carrying shame from somebody else. So when you feel ashamed about something, just feel into that in your body. And it usually is stored right there in that center section, that solar plexus of the body, where the sun is supposed to be shining of us. And that solar plexus, that shame, to just feel what it would be like to say, you know what, I've got this shame in my body that somebody else gave me. I'm going to put it in my hand and I'm going to give it back to them, because it's not mine to begin with. It never was. But like you mentioned earlier, we're in a vulnerable place, or we're little ones or things like that, and we think we're supposed to carry it for somebody else, but it's not ours. And so to give that back to the person where it originated, you usually find people that say, oh no, I couldn't do that because that'll be a burden for them. No, it's really theirs to begin with. It should never have been yours to carry. And so there's a bit of a process, and sometimes we'll work through some things like that, really to move some of the energy, as well as letting the forks do what they're doing. And so, yeah.
And that just brought up for me that we have, like, self-worth or these different shame, we have them in different compartments, because I always struggle with saying that I don't feel self-worthy, right? Because
Okay.
I feel really good going to these athletic events and things like that, and just being me. And if people don't like that, or they taught, it's been brought to my attention that there's a lot of gossip going around in the school, the parents, and I just laugh and think, that's whatever if they want to I don't know if they gossip about me or not, but if they do, it's not my problem, right? Like, it says more about them than it says about me. And I feel really good there. But when it comes to putting myself out there for creating a business, saying that I'm really good at what I do, that makes me uncomfortable. That's where my self-worth gets, oh man, there's something there, right? So it's really interesting. We can deceive ourselves and be like, well, I don't feel, I've got self-worth. I can walk into these situations and say I'm worthy of being here. But is it in all areas of the life? Is it in your relationships? It can be tricky.
Yeah, and you bring up something that also is part of what has been showing up lately with the biofield tuning, because I've been trained with voice dialogue, and voice dialogue, what I feel is part of what you're speaking to, has to do with voice dialogue really identifies that we have different parts to us, and these different parts have developed. Well, we come in with them, but they kind of lay dormant until something comes up that needs to have this part become more available. And usually it's very young. At times what you were mentioning as far as self-worth of a 2-year-old is very different than a self-worth of, say, a 30-year-old that's facing parents or things like that sort that's got. So, the self-worth that you're mentioning as far as possibly putting yourself out there and really being known for what you do in your business and things like that, the work probably is more about that 2-year-old and what kind of self-worth she felt at that time, as opposed to the one who's facing the parents right now. Because right now those boundaries are very, very, you feel really good about, yourself, you can feel really stable in that. But the other part is the part that doesn't feel so stable. And she is the little one who really is wanting to have some attention right now.
That's fascinating. I would have never thought that. I would have thought that came later in life when I was out working or trying to create something and didn't. So that's food for thought for me to go back, and even more reason to do this inner child work, this journaling, this maybe just putting awareness to it, right? Like what wants to be seen.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, we talk about inner child, and it's got its own avenue, and that's really good. But there's something about actually, whether it's voice dialogue or there's internal family systems that's along that same line, but actually being with that energy of that child, that 2-year-old or 3-year-old or whatever it was. It's usually somewhere in that time frame. That's what I'm getting a reading of, but somewhere in that time that they did something and they really put themselves out there, and they thought they were really cool, and somebody cut them off at the knees, and she's still frozen in time. And so she's looking at, like, you're going to do what to us? You're going to make us be out there again? You know, she's going, no. You can feel her heels digging in deep, right?
Yeah.
And that's where sometimes we can get in touch with that voice dialogue and things like that. We actually have a conversation with that energy and see if we can have permission to speak with her, because she has protectors, not just her. She's got a bunch of protectors that's out there going, nope, we're not going to do it. I don't care what she tries to do. I don't care what kind of marketing she's doing. I'm not buying it. I'm not, nope. You know, and so they're doing it because that little one, and the interesting part is that little one, when you have the conversation with that little one and you say, how do you think I am? She'll say, you're the same age as me. So she doesn't know that you are older, that you could actually protect her. She thinks she's doing everything she can right now to protect you. And so she's staying and keeping everybody in this isolation. And so that would be an interesting place to just really do some exploration, because that's where I get, when you talk about compartmentalizing, I think it's not so much about the self-worth about it, is the age of when that might be, something about it being triggered, or something about it being a little bit feeling like it's like you've entered into some tender territory.
Yeah. And you just shined. And this is why nobody needs to sell themselves. They just need to come on and show who they are, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I need to be working with Maggie as my life coach too. And that's what I love so much about you, is you have done all this work. You've been through so many seasons of life. You feel like you can really hold people, and you have all these tools. And that's what I'm always looking for. Before it was all health, right? And so I was looking for this functional medicine doctor, because I was like, I don't want to go to the doctor that's going to give me a pill to do this, but you have to go to this doctor and they give you a pill to do this, and you have to go to this doctor, because none of them are talking. They're only singly focused on one area of your body, and the whole body can bring itself back to health, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why I was always looking for a functional medicine doctor. Well, then they're just giving you supplements. So then they're just supplementing
Right.
instead of it being a pharmaceutical, it's a supplement.
Yeah.
And so it's so hard to find somebody that's so well-rounded. And you have the diet and lifestyle and all of that training. You have the coaching and the psychological training. You have the biofield tuning and energetic training. Like, you're looking at it from a whole space. And that's what makes me really excited about sharing you, but also continuing to work with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it feels like that. It feels like, it's just like, it's not that it had a full intention, back at that little girl, when you said in the small town, she didn't know that was what was happening. But there's just something that I would just urge anyone, is that there's a certain way that we follow a path, and really honoring that, whether it's a masculine way, that we really do it in a structured way, that it goes from, school to this to that, into to jobs, whatever really fits for you. But it really does, not to say that it's right or wrong one way or the other. And so that's what I'm learning more to appreciate about what I've done. I've followed the places that just excite me, that turn up the fire in my belly. And the other part is, I love that I'm taking myself out of the equation, as much as I appreciate your and the accolades that I have done too, is that at this point in time, I can pull back and just let the forks in your body do the things that they're naturally here to do, to harmonize themselves, to bring themselves into alignment, to be the light that they are supposed to be or that they've come here to be. And I just get to witness it, and they get to witness it, and just feel like, wow, I don't know what just hit me. I had a client a couple of weeks ago and said, I don't know what you did to me, but it was amazing. I slept for an hour and a half after the session, and it was the best sleep. And I had these amazing, it was just really, it's subtle, and we really haven't talked about too much of that, but I know that there's people are looking for outcomes, and when they do something like this, they want to know, what's it going to mean to me? And I get that. And it's not going to be something with a 2x4, thank goodness, because energy respects us and our bodies respect us, that it's going to do it in ways that we can take in and that we can still continue to move through life with, and give us more of a layer or more of that section of that life that can be a little bit lighter, as opposed to feeling so burdened. And that's what I hear from a lot of people. They just say, I feel so much lighter. I feel like I could just, and then all of a sudden they're cleaning closets because they've put that away for a long time, and things, and then they come back and they're just surprised at how much they feel they can do because they just feel lighter, it feels like. So
yeah, I definitely, most sessions by the end, I feel like I'm sitting on a geyser of energy. And I'm just like, whoa. And then you kind of, balance everything out, and I leave the session and I feel really good. I can usually get a little bit done. Maybe I go outside and ground, or maybe I go on a walk, or I have energy. And then it seems like a certain point, I'm just like staring out the window, just like zoned in a really nice way, right? It's just like, I'm so relaxed right now.
That's so good.
Yes. And
that's such a change for you, because you're so on task, right? And always thinking and always moving in that.
Yeah, it is wonderful for me. I've been planning to not have anything that day, so that I can just stare out the window if I want for 2 or 3 hours, because I think that that's a beautiful thing to give myself, right? I always think I have to be learning something or doing something with my mind. Yes,
that's that receiving part again. And and that's the feminine. The feminine, we have forgot. So many women have taken on, for whatever reason, have taken on the masculine energy, and then we don't receive, and then we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And so it becomes a reminder for definitely the feminine, that wing of the feminine has to open up to guide, to go with the masculine, so we can go in a straight line. But if we just keep thinking we're just going to keep doing and doing and doing, we're just repeating the same thing, and it'll still be in circles. So that's part of why I feel so drawn to working in that sacral area and the solar plexus area, to allow the feminine to be more open, to understand it more, to understand that there's guilt and shame that has weighed us down, and to not be ashamed of that anymore, or think that we are the only ones carrying that we are all able to let it go and move out of that and move into our brilliance, move into the light of who we truly are. That's what's gonna, I think, make big shifts.
Yeah. And can you, if somebody's sitting here and saying, okay, well, I feel like I let my life pass me by, it's too late. Have you ever felt that way? And can you give us any, like how that's not true?
Yeah. So, there's a couple things that come to mind. So I'll just go with the first one that shows up, is that, we all have a saboteur in our heads that wants to lie to us all the time. And so, especially through voice dialogue and through various different things, through coaching for sure, when I hear a client say something like that, I'm able to really stop them in a way and say, you know what, that's a lie that you're telling yourself. And we can go down that path and really continue to feed that if you really want to. But I just want you to know that that's a lie that's developed somehow, that's got something to do with, like you said, that self-worth part, that doesn't want to be opened up and explored and called out. A saboteur does not want to be called out at all. But But the other part is that, it's bumping up. The reason why something like that is bumping up is to get our attention. And so that attention, I've learned, again, not to, for me to look at it right, wrong, good, bad, or anything of that sort. That statement, when it comes up, and it will, and it has for me, has for other people, when it comes up, it's like, what do I want to do with that? What do I want to do with that statement? What of it is true? What of it isn't true? And why is it here right now? So I find that as often as we can, and this is when we overdo so much and when we've got so many different things back to back to back, is that sometimes we have to pause and just notice our thoughts, notice what's coming up, and that's part of what I love about the Biofield tuning sessions too, is all I'm asking for people to do is spend time with themselves and just be curious. Just see what comes up. Just start to notice these thoughts, start to notice these body sensations. We're so detached because we're not grounded. We forget we have bodies, we forget we have emotions, we've got all these things. So when that comes up, and in response to that voice that you just mentioned, I would also remind that person, or remind you, if it's a voice within you, to say, that's a part of you that just came up, that wanted to say something for some reason. Let's have some conversation. What about it feels hopeless? Because right now that's a very hopeless, in despair conversation. That's a statement that just doesn't feel like there's anything there. And that part is very true for that part.
Yeah.
But in the overall system, it's really not fitting, and it's not going to move that person forward. But for some reason, that needed to have some attention that stops us in our tracks, right?
Yeah. No,
That's a
I
big
love it so
statement.
much. I just see so many people, because I work with so many people, and I see their potential when I look at their chart, and I'm like, you have so many gifts. And they're just like, well, and they just feel like the time has passed them by. They're at this point, and it's like, it's never too late, never too late to change your life, to have a new story, to create anything, right?
Yeah. But the other part that comes up for me too, as you're saying that too, Angie, is that when our light is really dimmed and we've got no energy and no electricity,
Yeah.
Trying to say, well, we're going to go on a road trip that's going to be 1,000 miles. You're going to say, no, it's too late. I don't want to do that. And so there's something about that too, that kind of comes to mind, that might be the situation, because we are very depleted. We are very pushed down. We have all that going on naturally just by being in this gravitational system that we're in. And that's why why we have to be back in touch with our light and our electricity to bring us up, move us up.
And before I had met you, I knew my sacral was shut down, and I just kept, trying to breathe energy into it and trying to just connect with it. And I think that's a beautiful place to start. Maybe anybody that's listening to this, if you want somewhere to start, like you said, maybe let's go put our feet on the ground. Maybe let's not take our phone or our headphones or something, and let's just listen to the inner dialogue. But that's why I think biofield tuning is such a wonderful thing, because most people are just tired. We're all tired. We've been pushing towards things that don't light us up for so long that we're tired. So I think that's really beautiful. I can't believe I think we could have another hour on just I would love to maybe have another dialogue sometime on masculine and feminine. I just feel like we're at this point where we don't even know what we're looking for in men and what we're supposed to be as women. And we're just we're just struggling, right? Struggling to figure out these dynamics. So there could even be more conversation on that. But I think we've learned so much, and we've definitely highlighted what you do and why I send my clients to you, and why anybody listening,
thank you. Thank you. And just one quick point about the masculine and feminine is, I would love to have that more of a conversation on that. And I would also love to add into that, it has nothing to do with gender, like we're not looking for the man or we're looking for the woman or things of that sort, is to incorporate the feminine energy in everyone and incorporate the masculine energy in everyone in the balance and in the cooperative energy that is needed to move both forward, as opposed to suppressing one or oppressive and things like that, or oppressing and giving more credit. So this patriarchal, any of those things is still something that's more of a discussion, but it's about the energy of it. It's about the terminology we use, receiving in reference to what we've just spoke about. Receiving is a feminine energy.
Yeah.
And it can be used by men, or it can be with women. And men sometimes, have shut that part of them down to receive. And you can feel it. It's just, you feel it like, oh no, I can do it. These things, the times that we really stand up and think that we're the only ones that can do it, instead of just receiving anything that comes forward and allowing it to be good for us, as opposed to feeling these obstructions. So anyways, just a quick note on that, if you want to.
Yeah, no, I feel like we could talk about that for so long, even how we, raise our children to understand how we interact with people, how we, because we do contain maybe somebody that thinks, oh, I'm single, I can't do this. No, we have it within ourselves that we have to balance. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
this has been so fun.
I know, it went so fast. I'm so pleased to share you with everybody. I will put your website in the show notes for anybody, but if you could just give a quick how they can reach out to you and work with you.
Yeah. Well, if they have any questions, I think the easiest thing to do is to go on the website, and they can fill out a form, and it will submit a question so that we can have a dialogue, because some people still feel like they want a little bit more of an explanation, and I welcome that. I mean, I totally get that there's some things about this that's not going to feel and be understood, and if someone feels ready to make a schedule and to actually schedule a session, you can go on my website, which is maggiepierce.com. And there's a scheduler right there, and they can schedule it at that time. And then I will connect with them for the payment for that afterwards. So that's all right there and available for them. I do like to suggest for people who feel ready and see that this is something that would be calling to them. I find that, like the garbage pail, it's a good idea to be really flushing with light as much as possible. So I highly suggest, not because of monetary reasons as much as you will get a more stabilized feeling, to have like 3 sessions, almost like weekly sessions, to really get a remembering feel what it feels like to be a lighter person on this earth, because sometimes we're so far away from that. But all that I can discuss more, but they can definitely get in touch with me through the website. That'd be great.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Maggie. Thank you for your time and all that you shared. And it's always wonderful to get to talk to you and see you.
And you too. And it was great to be in person too. It was wonderful.
Yes.
Great treat.
Thank you everybody so much for listening. I highly recommend checking Maggie out. She is one person that I will say I felt such a definite change when I started working with her, just in my energy levels, in the anxiety that I didn't even realize was in my body, feeling that release, feeling grounded, just a lot more balance in my being. So I definitely recommend working with Maggie. If you are interested in what's going on with me, go to my website at evolvingonpurpose.org. From there, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram and check out my offerings. I've added in all of the astrology, looking at solar returns, so a wonderful thing to do around your birthday, looking at kind of the homework for that year, looking at progressions, where are you at in life right now, what season you're in. Maybe that could give us some more information about why you're feeling a need for change, or if you're just feeling tired, we can see what cycle, maybe you're ending a cycle, maybe do some homework around that ending of a cycle so that when the next cycle picks up, you're ready for that change. But there's so much we can look at with combining the human design, GeneKeys, and astrology, or just diving into whichever area calls you. We can do some of that deep work to see where you're at, really connect you with your mission and what's going on, and looking back and forward as to how to really embody the gifts that you have. So check me out, check out what my offerings are, follow me, check in and say hi if you want. I love hearing from people as well. I'm just so happy that you're here, and I just hope that everybody listening can find one thing that they can do today to become more aware of, how they're feeling, what's going on, and what they really want in life. Because when we have all these people that are present, the world will change. So thanks for being on this ride with me. And as always, let's keep evolving on purpose.